you're doing well. My name's Katie and I make book-related videos every single Wednesday, and today's video is going to be a little bit different than normal because although I'm going to be talking about a book today, I'm not necessarily reviewing the book itself and the writing. I'm going to be reviewing the method that the book teaches about. So today we're going to be talking about, it's a long title so I have it in front of me, it's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, the Japanese Art of Decluttering and Organizing by Marie Kondo. Before I get into talking about the book, I think it's important to talk about how messy or clean I am, because I think when I'm talking about whether or not I think the methods work, it's important for you guys to have a little bit of context for what I'm like. But I would say that I am kind of a neat freak, and that definitely I think just comes from the fact that I grew up in a military family where, you know, if I left a sock on the ground, my parents would be like, why did you choose to leave a sock on the ground? So I've always just kind of been the type to be on the neater, cleaner side. And now you might be thinking, Katie, then why are you reading and reviewing this book? And that's because, well, I just really love cleaning, so I also love reading about cleaning. So for the structure of this review, I'm gonna talk about kind of the overarching main concepts that she talks about. Then I'm gonna talk about the things that I kind of agree with, the things that I definitely do not agree with and didn't really like, and then some of the stuff that I just was kind of iffy on. But overall, I will say I loved the book and I do highly recommend it, but I haven't like fully drank the Konmari Kool-Aid. I would say I've had a shot glass worth, but I'm not like fully there, but overall I really liked it. So for a quick summary for what the Konmari method is, one of the main concepts is that, say you're a messy person, one of the things you might be doing is that once a week, once every couple weeks, once a month maybe, you'll clean your whole apartment, and then within just a day or two it's back to being messy, and you think, how did it already get like this? I just must be a messy person, there's just nothing I can do to change this. And she says that one of the main things that people need to do in order to have their homes be clean and put together is not just putting things away. Prior to that, the biggest and most important piece is to get rid of all the shit that you don't need and the shit that you don't love. And once you've done that and you only really have the things in your home that you love or that you need, just statistically you're gonna have less things in your home to make a mess out of. And then once you've gotten rid of all those things, then you can focus on organizing. And I'm sure the part you've all heard of is when you are trying to decide whether or not you really need to keep something, you hold it and you think, does this spark joy? Or she talks about the fact that of course there's some things that you just need to keep, like birth certificates, things like that. So in terms of what I liked about this, I will say the main things that I enjoyed, just because I'm already a pretty neat person, I liked a lot of the little details and tricks she talks about. I did think it got a little bit repetitive how many times she talked about things sparking joy and decluttering, but I do think it's good that is in there that many times. If you're reading the book and you're a messy person, that might help it really hit home. But in terms of the tricks that I really enjoyed, one of the first ones isn't really a trick, but it's more so the idea of not holding on to papers that you just think you need, when if you really think about it, you don't need them. I'm definitely this way where I have like massive binders of papers and bills and things that are already paid off that I really don't need to keep for any particular reason. And she says that we shouldn't feel like we're bad people for going ahead and shredding all that stuff, and we should only really keep the important documents that we actually really need to have. For example, do you really need to keep the really thick guide on how to build your bookshelf on the off chance it breaks? No. I also really appreciated the fact that she talks about how you don't need to go to the Container Store and spend a crazy amount of money on objects to help organize. She actually says that her favorite organization tool is just a shoebox, which I thought was really awesome, because if you think about it, she could have totally made a ton of money by selling organizational objects and things to store things in. She could have made bank on that because this book has been so popular. So I just love that she was like, no, shoeboxes are fine. Another really good tip I thought was that she says not to tell, and this might sound bad, but not to tell your family members and friends that you're going to be donating and getting rid of things. This one really hit home for me because although I said my parents are very clean and organized, they're also the type where if I say I'm going to get rid of something and do they want it, they will 99.9% of the time say yes, even if they don't need it. So I really liked her advice to instead say, for example, the thing I'm going to be getting rid of is a vacuum cleaner. Ask your family, hey, did you need any cleaning supplies, because I'm going to be getting rid of some stuff. And if they don't say that they need a vacuum cleaner, that likely means that they don't. So I thought that was really good advice. She also spends a lot of time talking about loungewear. Loungewear meaning just anything you're wearing around the house. And this isn't just pajamas. This is things, and I like how she articulated, she talks about how, and I'm guilty of this, I'm sure you guys are too, where you have, say, something that once was a really nice sweater that you would wear to work or to school, but it's gotten kind of tattered over time and you don't really love it anymore, so you just keep it in your drawer and think, okay, well, I can wear that around the house. And she says that of course you need pajamas, you need things to wear to the gym, but still in those instances to only keep the items that you are genuinely using and that actually spark joy and that actually make you feel good when you wear them. And I really liked that point because, and I'll just get specific here for me, I wear nightgowns around the house or when I go to sleep. I cannot for the life of me sleep in pants and socks. I don't know how people do that. They just bunch up and I feel like I'm trapped. And I have some nightgowns that I feel really cute in, and I have some that when I'm wearing them and I walk by, I'm alone in my apartment and walk by the mirror, I'm like, and she says that even if it's just you there, you should still feel good about yourself. Now we're gonna get into the things that I really didn't agree with. And the first one is she has a line, and I wrote it down verbatim. She says, truly precious memories will never vanish, even if you discard the objects associated with them. And I disagree with this on so many levels. The point at which she's talking about this is when people keep things solely for the purposes of, you know, being able to remember those memories attached to them. And I just completely disagree with the fact that if those memories are so important, you'll remember them if you don't have the object. Well, some of us have terrible memories, and although mine isn't that bad, there are items that I have in little memory boxes from trips, or say when I was living in Spain or when I studied abroad, that I do forget about those memories unless I'm looking at the item. And not all of them really spark joy. Some of them are not the greatest memories, but I still want to remember them. She also says the best method for storing all like your hair products, your skincare products in the shower is to, after you use them every single time you shower or bathe, to dry them off with a towel and then store them in a separate storage area. No way in hell am I doing that. I have mine on just a rack that kind of hangs high above. The shower head is never hitting it, so it's never getting wet and rusty, but it just kind of stores everything up top. I know that as much as I'm a neat person, I'm also fairly lazy, so if I did her method and had to carry them back and forth, I would end up just leaving them kind of scattered around the tub, and then they'd get dirty at the bottom with all the gunk and everything. She also has a line about loungewear, and as I said, I like some of what she has to say about loungewear, but then she goes on to say this sentence. She says, if sweatpants are your everyday attire, you'll end up looking like you belong in them, which is not very attractive. I'm actually really curious about that one to hear what you guys think on that, because I thought that was pretty extreme. And I will say the main thing that I disliked about this book, and I will say in advance, I listened to this book as an audiobook, and there were a couple times I fell asleep, not because it was boring, but because I listened to it as I was going to bed, and I would always rewind it to make sure I didn't miss anything. But again, it's possible I just missed her saying this in the book, so I apologize if she did talk about this. But I do really wish that there had been more of an emphasis on donating or selling the items you're getting rid of. At least in my view, she just constantly talked about getting rid of things, throwing things out, and I really just wish she would have talked about donating and selling things. There's even at one point in the book where she says even if you get rid of something and then later on you actually needed it, you can always just buy another. Well, not everybody can always just buy another, so I think there is a certain level of privilege I wish she would have just touched on, because some people really are going to need to sell the majority of what they're decluttering in their home if you know it's not trash and it's possible to sell it. But it is possible she didn't talk about that just because she assumed that's what people would do, but I just wish she would have talked about maybe that donation piece a little bit more. And now I want to talk about some of the things that I just thought were interesting, that I didn't think were good or bad things, but I just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts as well. So one thing I noticed is she really doesn't talk that much about how this would work if you're in a large family or say you have tons of kids. The one thing she does say, and I do agree with, is the fact that you can't force your family members to be this way. You can't force your family members to do the method. You can't declutter their stuff without their permission. And she even talks about how she went through a stage when she was little when she would do that, and then her family figured out what she was doing and got rightfully pissed at her. So I did like that she talked about that, but at the same time I didn't really notice her touching on if you have children, how you could practice this method, just because it doesn't seem that realistic. And then the main thing that I thought was kind of interesting is she really talks about how she actually speaks to every single object in her home as she uses it. And I mean that literally, like she thanks her shoes, she thanks the floor, she thanks her purse, she thanks her coat, and she does this all like as she's walking home at the end of the day. And again, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I think with this point, it just really shows that to practice the KonMari method, you don't have to fully drink the Kool-Aid and do every single thing that she does. Figure out what works for you, figure out what doesn't, because I know if I did that thanking piece, I would just start to get kind of obsessive and just start thinking about the things in my apartment too much, to the point where it would probably give me anxiety. Like, I want to declutter, but I don't want to be constantly like thinking about the things around me, if that makes sense. So those were the majority of my thoughts on this book. I am so interested to hear from you guys if you've read this book. I also heard that there's a manga, which I do think would be really fun, and I'm kind of upset that I hadn't checked out that instead of the book. But if you guys read this book, please let me know what you loved, what you didn't agree with, because overall I loved it, but like I said, I had some things that I wouldn't necessarily practice in my own life. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Bye.